Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jack Mulvey, and I'm here to welcome you to the Capital Community. Is this Black people talking about various activities that are going on in the Capital District, and we're very fortunate today to have Ed Collins, who is the board of the Irish American Heritage Museum, with us. Ed, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jack. I would say to you, Falcha, welcome to the museum, to the Irish American Heritage Museum.
You say the nicest things, Ed. Tell us about the museum, Ed. What is it?
Well, the museum was created 26 years ago by New York State legislation. It is a cultural arts museum. When we were created back in 1986, they placed us in East Durham, New York, in Greene County. And we started as a seasonal exhibit center there. We've been open for, we opened in the early 90s once we rehabilitated the building we were in down there in East Durham. We had a grand opening down there, I believe in 1991. The current Board of Trustees, that predates almost all of the current Board of Trustees. It certainly predates my presence on the board and most of the trustees. So I'm giving you some historical information that we have on record. But we opened that summer exhibit facility in 1991, and we were open all these years from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Taking advantage of the summer season. In 1992, the museum received a charter, a permanent charter from the New York State Board of Regents as an educational institution. In recent years, the current board in recent years determined that it is very difficult to fulfill our educational mission when we're only open in East Durham between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So about 3 years ago, there was an effort begun by the board to start looking for a year-round facility. And we're going to get into that a little later. But in the interim, but all those years that we were a seasonal facility, exhibit center, we created our own exhibits. And we now number about a dozen exhibits, and we've presented them in East Durham, and they also travel, and they've traveled all over the United States and in Ireland itself.
Well, Ed, you say it started about 25 years ago. Who was the driving force behind all that?
Our founding chairman was Joseph Dolan, Joseph J. Dolan Jr. He was our founding chair, and he really was the impetus behind the creation of the museum in East Durham, and for all the years that we were in East Durham, he was chair of the board, and just a wonderful force to keep this museum going. He always had a vision to create a year-round facility. Unfortunately, he passed away several years ago. Never realized that vision to fruition, although there were several attempts in the late 90s and early part of this decade to locate in a capital region. So the current board has taken his vision and really moved with that vision for a year-round facility. But Joe Dolan was the force behind this museum, and he kept it going for all these years. Laid a great foundation.
I knew Joe, and if Joe had an idea and wanted to work on it got done.
Yes, it got done, and you're right about that.
If we had to sort of sum up what the mission of the museum would be, how would you sum that up?
Well, we are the Irish American Heritage Museum. Our mission is really twofold, and we have a statement about that, and the board has wrapped It is to preserve of the Irish and their culture here in America, contributions they have made to America over the century. And in doing that, to actually inspire other people a heritage in terms of their ancestors' struggles and challenges and contributions to the American cultural mosaic. So it's really a twofold mission. When people come in, experience the exhibits that we have and the other programming that we have, we not only want them to be proud of their Irish heritage, but if they're not Irish, we want them thinking to themselves, well, I should examine my own heritage. I should, and we need to sustain. Point out that we live in an age now, Jack, where we are all instantly connected to each other. We got, cell phones and iPads and the internet and laptops and netbooks and all of the technologies and we use Facebook and Twitter and all of these platforms that we can connect to instantaneously to each other contemporaneously. And our children are so exposed to that and familiar with that and using that. We need to keep our children and grandchildren connected to their heritage. And I like to point that out in terms of our mission, to sustain that.
I found that most of myself and a lot of people consider ourselves Americans, and yet there seems to be some background twinge to say, all right, do I have any other ancestry there, and what really went on? So I find this very interesting.
I might want to point one other thing out. The Irish here in America, there are almost 40 million people in America that can claim Irish ancestry. And that's the second largest heritage group in America. Heritage.
What is the largest?
Germanic, the Central European nations there. But the Irish is second in America in terms of the greatest number of people who can claim a heritage. And most of us, and it's in my case as well, my father was Irish, my mother was Polish. Most of us have that sort of mixed heritage, and it's worth knowing, your heritage and passing that on to future generations. And that's kind of become the museum's motto: your heritage, pass it on. You'll see it on a lot of our brochures and our publications and on our website.
Not to go too far off, but I think a lot of what we as Americans found as a genesis of getting involved in what our heritage was goes back to the TV show Roots, which was about the heritage of African-American slaves. And that I'm probably talking about something that's prior to a lot of our audience remembering the show.
That was only 30 years ago, and it's for most people that's ancient history, but not for us. You do have You've pretty much moved into your new home, haven't you? Have you transferred up here? We have. The board has closed the East Durham facility. We were leasing that facility over the years. We moved out of there this summer, and we have been in the process of renovating a little over 3,000. It's about 3,300 square foot area. First floor area on Broadway in downtown Albany. It's what affectionately is called the historic McGinnis Building. It's right across the street from SUNY Central Administration, a big castle-like building on Broadway, and that used to be the old D&H Castle that they referred to. We're right across the street, the ground floor there. It's all handicapped accessible. We have moved in there. We're still putting the finishing touches on getting that up and running, and we have a grand opening the week of January 17th, and we've got a whole series of events that week, each day starting January 17th with a ribbon cutting. Mayor Jennings is going to be there, and a lot of other dignitaries, and then we have a number of events the rest of that week into the weekend.
What types of activities are you talking about?
When people think of museums, they think about walking in and looking at exhibits on a wall, which people are going to be able to do. But we want to be more than that. We want to be more of a cultural arts center for the Irish here in the capital region and the Great Northeast. Interestingly enough, if one were to draw a line between Albany and Troy, New York, across the river, up to Saratoga Springs, over to Amsterdam, and then down to Schenectady and back to the city of Albany, back to our museum in the city of Albany. Within that perimeter, there are more Irish than there are in the city of Boston.
You're kidding me, man.
No, I'm not. And that's a very interesting little fact there. And we want to be more than just a museum for the Irish in this region. So the kinds of programs we're going to be having are children's programs, hopefully on a number of the Saturdays that will be open during the year. And again, we're going to be open year-round. But Saturdays, we're concentrating on children and family programs. Things like bringing in some step dancers or bringing in someone to show how Bridget's crosses are made, delving into family life in Ireland at various times in past centuries and in America. We're going to have book signings. We have William Kennedy, a great Pulitzer Prize-winning author, who's going to read from his latest book and do some book signings during our opening week. That'll be on Wednesday, the January 18th at 7 o'clock. We're doing that as an example of something else we want to be doing in the museum over the years. We're going to be doing lectures. We're going to be bringing notable Irish Americans into the area and for lectures and presentations. We're hoping to bring in actors and actresses and perhaps doing some readings in that manner. We also want to be doing some film series. We'll be presenting movies and films, hopefully. So the museum will be a dynamic museum. It's not going to be something where you just walk in and simply look at exhibits on a wall. We also have a gift shop. It'll be a small gift shop, but we'll also have a gift shop, and all of the items will be from Ireland. And another aspect of the museum is that we have the Paul O'Dwyer Library.
Tell me about that, will you?
Well, a lot of us of our generation will remember Paul O'Dwyer. He was a very famous Irish American in New York City. He was a champion of labor and what a lot of us would call the causes of the little man and woman on the street. You know, he championed those of us who needed help. He won a number of. He was an attorney, won a number of legal cases that opened up integration in South. So he was really a champion of the people.
Wasn't he involved in politics?
Yes, he was. He ran for mayor of New York City. He ran for senator from New York State. He lost that race, by the way, to Jacob Javits. But he was the New York City Council president for a number of years. He was on the New York City Council for a number of years. When he passed away, his family presented the museum with a number of his books and writings, and they've been very supportive of the library ever since. Thus, we've named it the Paul O'Dwyer Library. We have a collection of probably 400 or 500 books. People come in and do research and look things up, and we've had visitors from outside the country, from Ireland. Last year or the year before, we had someone come in from Japan for 4 days to do some research in the library. And another aspect, in answer to your question, what kinds of programs are we going to be doing in the museum? We want to, at some point this year, get up and running a station in the library, the Paul O'Dwyer Library, where people can do some genealogy research. We have some volunteers who are very much knowledgeable about genealogy, and they're going to help us set up a computer station, hopefully, and make some connections to services that will help people do some Irish genealogy. And I don't know how many of your viewers have ever been to Dublin to the National Library, but if you go there, there's a huge room on the second floor for genealogy. Now, you have to make an appointment to go in there. I've been there. My family's been there. We hope to, the goal will be to somehow connect our station in the Paul O'Dwyer Library with that a room in that service at the National Library. So these are just some of the things we want to do.
Well, you say that. Have you had any connections with the Irish government, with the library systems over there?
Well, a couple of things. For the first time ever, 2 years ago, we received our first grant from the Irish government.
From the government itself? From
the government itself, yes. And that grant was to develop an exhibit called Dublin Then and Now. And that's going to be our opening exhibit at our new facility on 370 Broadway in the McGuinness building when we open up January 17th. I brought with us a couple of samples of that exhibit. And let me explain a little bit about Dublin Then and Now, if I can.
Yeah, what does, when you talk then and now, what are you really talking about?
In 1963, a professional photographer by the name of Marvin Connor was hired by Kodak to go to Dublin and to capture life on the docks and in the city of Dublin, the streets of Dublin, to reflect what life was like in Ireland at the time. Now, Ireland at that time was essentially a poor country, and you can see from some of these shots in 1993 that people were in not so good financial straits. The economy was not good. You'll see on the wall here, "We want work," scratched into this wall, and the style of clothing that people would wear back then on the docklands. Another one here reflects. Here is an apartment in Dublin, and you can see a couple of women here, and you can see the tattered window curtain here, and really the mold on the wall back here, and just living in those conditions in Dublin back then, bringing up a family. And then another one here, these men in 1963 are waiting for work. They assemble on the docklands, and to the extent that ships were unloading, they would call out numbers, and they're waiting for work for their number to be called that day. It was not life that we experience here in America. When Marvin Connor published these photographs in Photography magazine, they received rave reviews. When he passed, his wife, his widow, deeded them to the museum. We commissioned a photographer in 2003 to go back to the same spots. And
40 years later.
40 years later, and capture life in Dublin, in the same areas that Marvin Connor captured life back in 1963, to show the transformation in Ireland. We all heard about the Celtic Tiger, and how life has changed dramatically in Ireland as a result of the economics in Ireland, and how they became the Celtic Tiger. So we have a series of photographs in the exhibit that captured life 40 years later, thus the name Dublin Then and Now. And this exhibit was made possible by the Irish government in terms of chronicling that transformation, and we're very proud of that exhibit. It's been on exhibit in the Irish Consulate in New York City, at the Commodore Barry Club in Philadelphia, at the Gaelic American Club in Fairfield, Connecticut. It's also been on exhibit at the National Library in Dublin, and we are the first museum in America to present at the National Library in Dublin an exhibit on Irish life. And I will tell you that we got emails. We received emails from people who visited that exhibit in Dublin at the National Library. These were grandparents who grew up in the 50s, in the 40s and 50s, in the early 60s, when Marvin Connor took those original photographs. And they had in tow their grandchildren who experience life today in a completely transformed Ireland. And some of the emails we got from these grandparents, it brought them to tears to see the transformation in life there. The black and whites captured life so well that they remembered back from the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
There is a certain, I don't know what the word would be, but there's a real difference between black and white photographs and color photographs in terms of what you have to, and the emotional impact of those things.
The Docklands are essentially gone in Dublin there. They've all been replaced by high-rise apartments and high-rise office buildings and men and women in suits, and life has just transformed tremendously. It's just, and that's what we wanted to show, that experience. That we recently received another grant from the Irish government as well, and that was for our next exhibit, which is the Irish and the Erie Canal. And
tell me a little bit about that. What's that entail?
I think a lot of us have the impression or know that the Irish helped build the Erie Canal. The story behind that is that beyond the laborers who labored for that whole 350-mile plus canal construction, there were engineers, there were architects, there were financiers, there were elected officials, all Irish. We have this image that the only contribution that the Irish made to the Erie Canal was their muscle and their efforts to construct it. But in fact, there's a whole backdrop of Irish men and women who helped with a tremendous number of other aspects of that in terms of getting financing and getting elected officials on board and the architects and engineers. There were two Irishmen in particular, 100 years before they even got started on the Erie Canal, who proposed a canal, a route, something to connect the Atlantic Ocean down in New York City to the Great Lakes. To the it was an inward transportation route. And of course, the Erie Canal, as we all know, made New York City what it is, the financial capital of the world. And
I read a book recently that I think the name of it was The Wedding of the Waters.
Yes, yeah.
And that really struck me was how instrumental the Erie Canal was in allowing the Industrial Revolution to happen, because in order for that to happen, you had to get the people in England off the farms into the factories, and they needed them on the farms to produce the food to feed the country, and it was because of the Erie Canal and the ability to get all that produce out of what was then they called the Northwest, but it was essentially Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois.
Yeah.
To get that produce onto world markets.
Yeah. Before the Erie Canal was constructed, of course, Washington and George Washington and several of his compatriots there wanted a canal to connect into that same Midwest area over the Appalachians using the Potomac River, and that was just not feasible. So it was really a couple of Irishmen who really helped develop the routing for the Erie Canal. That essentially linked, the Buffalo area to New York City, and just opened up this country tremendously, and it made us an economic power.
And there was quite a bit of politics that were involved.
Oh, yes.
There's been a couple of books I've read over my lifetime that really talk about politics in New York, and one of them was that book, and the other was The Power Broker. And living in the Capital District, I think both those books you can recognize a lot of what goes on.
But here is the booklet that we've developed for our next exhibit, and after Dublin Then and Now, which will be on display from January 17th, probably until the end of February, at which time that will come down, and then we'll put up the Irish in the Erie Canal during March, leading up to St. Patrick's Day. And then it'll be on display through March and into early April. And then after that, the Erie Canal Museum in Syracuse wants to rent it, and it'll be on display in Syracuse then, and we expect it to go to Buffalo and Rochester and then to New York City. But this brochure, this booklet is we developed this for school children. So we're going to get the word out to the school districts in the capital region to hopefully bring school children in to experience the Irish and their contributions to the Erie Canal.
Is that going to be an integral part of what the museum does?
Yes, yes. Once again, referring back to our seasonal operations over the years, we could never bring school kids down because we were always open in the summertime when schools are closed. Now that we're open year-round at 370 Broadway in downtown Albany, we'll be able to bring school children in during the school year.
So they'll be able to bring the buses right to the front door, drop them off, and...
Yes. We hope so.
Let's talk about the legislature. I think that from what you told me earlier, they were an integral part of getting the museum going.
Yeah,
how did that occur?
Not only getting going, but helping sustain us over the years. There is a group in the legislature, and the group is the American Irish Legislators Society, and they've supported us over the many years and continue to support us in a lot of different ways. But they have opened doors for us in terms of all arts organizations have to go out and raise money. And the American Irish Legislators Society has opened doors for us in terms of going out to get corporate support and other support, grants, federal, state, and local grants, and also in terms of grants from Ireland. Just giving us advice, giving us direction, and they've been great that way. Jack McEnany is a great supporter of the museum. Michael Cusick, who is the current president of the American Irish Legislators Society, helps us a great deal. Assemblywoman Margaret Markey from down on Long Island there, she's been a tremendous support for us. All of them, Dale Volker.
He's from Western New York, isn't he?
Western New York, right. He was a tremendous supporter all the years that he was in the Senate. He was a part of the American Irish Legislators Society. He retired, I think, a couple of years ago. We have support throughout the state as well from the New York State AOH, Ancient Order of Hibernians, local AOH chapters, and also the National Ancient Order of Hibernians, and the ladies as well in all of the organizations. We get support from all of them.
Well, Neil Breslin's been very active.
Neil Breslin and Michael Breslin, Jerry Jennings. Tremendous support from Jerry Jennings. In fact, he's going to cut the ribbon on January 17th. We've had over the years many meetings with him. He's helped us in terms of he and his staff have helped us in terms of looking at locations here in the capital region. And I should mention that over the last year and a half, we've looked at a number of locations all over the capital region. We settled on the McGinnis building down in Broadway for a number of reasons, but Mayor Jennings and his staff have been of tremendous help in guiding us that way as well.
You say you've got a lot of people involved. Is there some special way, if people wanted to be involved in the museum, that they could be involved?
Yeah, absolutely. They can call us. We have a new number, and I'll give you that number. For those who remember the old number, I don't want to confuse people. That'll roll over to our new number on Broadway. So I'll give you the new number is 427-1916. 427-1916. Now, many of your viewers will know the significance of the last four digits of that number, 1916. The Easter Uprising in Ireland, leading to its independence. May not be so familiar with the first three numbers, 427, but that represents April 27th, 1916. That was right in the middle of the Rising, the Easter Rising of 1916. So that's our new number, 427-1916, and people can call us and volunteer. In fact, we've been taking volunteers. We have, over the past month, received a number of calls from interested people to volunteer. We are training volunteers. We have trained volunteers, and we'll continue to train volunteers. We have a good core of probably about 15 to 20 volunteers to help us. We have volunteers who are librarians. We have volunteers who are very familiar with what we were talking about earlier, Jack, the social networking, all these devices, and how to, the Facebook, and they're going to help us with that. And
they must be like my grandchildren.
They're younger than I am, I'll tell you that. We have volunteers who want to be docents and help during our hours that we're open. So, if people who want to volunteer, just give us a call, 427-1916. You can also find us on the internet. We have a long name, but you can find us. Irish,
So if they put in Irish American Heritage Museum in a Google or a search engine,
some search engine, Bing, Google,
it'll pop up.
Yahoo, it'll pop up. And we have a new website. And there are ways to connect with us. Send us an email to that website if you're interested in helping us. You mentioned the support that we've been getting. We need continued support, and there's a way on our website to make a donation. We have a PayPal account. And gosh, $5, $10, whatever people can afford always helps us. That the arts during trying economic times are one of the first things that present the greatest challenges. And we, as with other museums and cultural arts centers, are being challenged through these tough economic times. So we need this as much support as we can get. We have a fundraiser coming up on January 28th at the AOH in Albany.
Tell me about it.
The three Irish voices are going to be singing. Mike Roach, Mike Donegan, and I think it's Tom Gill. But they're going to be singing at the AOH on January 28th. It'll be a great night at the AOH. It's a Saturday, so it's almost halfway to St. Patty's Day. Yeah. So it'll be a good celebration. They're doing a benefit for the museum that day. You can come and in the big room at the AOH, they'll be there. You'll be able to get food and beverage in the other part of the AOH there, so it'll be a grand night for the Irish there.
That's the Albany AOH?
Albany AOH on Ontario Street,
on
Ontario Street, yeah.
You mentioned Bill Kennedy, William Kennedy. Certainly probably the most famous Irishman from the Capital District.
Absolutely.
And what do you anticipate he'll be doing for us? Reading at the.
He'll be reading from his new book, and he'll be reading some selections from his other books. He'll be answering questions. He'll have books there. It'll be a grand night for just listening to someone who is just so knowledgeable about Irish history in this area, and who was so able, through the fluid word, to express what it's like to be Irish. You know that a number of his books have Irish characters and personality, Irish American characters and personalities in them.
I don't think he has any books that don't have Irish American characters.
So that's on Wednesday the 18th, January 18th. But that's an example of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be bringing authors and other. And I should say that. I should let you know that during March or April, we're going to be bringing in an artist, Roisin Fitzpatrick, whose work, she does jewelry and other artwork, and it's currently on display down in Washington, D.C. At a gallery down there. It's been on display in New York City, and she's agreed to come up here. So that's another kind of program we're going to be doing through the years, bringing other artists into the museum itself for presentation.
Now, how do you publicize this, Ed? How do you get out and
Well,
let people know when these things are happening?
everything will be on our website. We have a calendar of events. We also have an established mailing list. So if people want to get on our mailing list, again, go to our website, and you can email us with a name and address, and just get on our mailing list. We also get pretty good coverage from the media here in the area. The media supports the arts in this area, the Times Union, the Gazette, the Troy Record, all of the TV stations and radio stations. They're very good supporters of the arts in this area. We're very fortunate in the Capital Region to have media that support arts and cultural education so well. So they'll hear about it that way as well. But, you know, again, I would drive people to our website. Again, www.IrishAmericanHeritageMuseum, all one word, all together, .org. And you can click on that every day and get an update on what's happening at the museum. And again, if people want to help us survive during these economic times, a donation would be wonderful. And there are various levels of memberships as well. You could become a member of the museum, and that'll be on our website as well. And there are benefits to becoming a member of this museum. At different levels, there's a lot of different levels of membership, but we have reciprocal agreements with museums around New York State and the country. And as with other museums, if you become a member of the museum at $100, and there are benefits at that level, you also get free admission to other museums in New York State, New York City, and throughout upstate New York. And I believe at $200 or $250, again, this will be all on the website, you can get free admission to museums, hundreds of museums in the United States. So museums have established this reciprocal agreement process, and all of us do this at these levels.
So it sounds like you're having a very successful summer, or excuse me, a successful campaign over the winter to set yourself up.
Yes.
What's down the road for the museum? What are your future plans other than what we spoke about?
We expect to have new exhibits. We're contemplating a new exhibit after the Irish and Erie Canal for late this year and early next year. We also have some other exhibits that we can put up. But primarily just offering people who visit different programming. People in the Capital Region, as I said earlier, will be able to come to our museum. Our vision is to have more of a dynamic experience for people, and those are the kinds of programs we envision down the road. It's a constant struggle, Jack, to get funding. Funding, grants are drying up. Funding is dried up in this economy. So I hate to keep, coming back to that, but it is, in terms of what do we want to do down the road, we need to secure more funding down the road to sustain us, to keep us going. We felt that opening up a year-round museum in downtown Albany is one way to do that. Not only do we fulfill our education mission and offer people a much wider audience the opportunity to come and visit us right down in Albany. And by the way, there's plenty of parking around us. But we also felt that having that structure, having that opportunity would help us secure more funding. So that's the goal of the Board of Trustees. And I'll tell you, Jack, that I'm here telling you all of this, but we have a very engaged Board of Trustees. We're all volunteers. None of us get paid for this. We do have 2 paid staff members who take care of the museum, but all of the trustees on the board are volunteers. We have a wide range of experience. We have attorneys. We've got people in financing. We've got people in education, government. We're all volunteers, and they're very much engaged as a board, and we want to keep this going. We want to sustain it, and we're just gonna. That's what we expect to do down the road.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ed, you've been very informative today, and I'm sure that all the people here in the capital area that are going to be able to watch this, and
they got to come down. You especially have to see this Dublin Then and Now exhibit. They're just poignant photographs. And by the way, I mentioned that this exhibit has been in New York City, Philadelphia, Fairfield, Connecticut, and in Ireland. And I should have said that a large segment of this exhibit has been there. This is the first time when we open on the 17th. This is the first time that we've been able to present the entire exhibit in one facility. The other facilities have not been large enough to bring the entire exhibit to. So the people of the capital region will experience Dublin Then and Now in its entirety. And there are about 63 photographs there. And I will tell you that the volunteers who have come in the recent weeks to help us, they're just wowed by the new museum. It is a gem. It's a great space. It's been renovated so well. I think people are going to be very, very pleased.
You're certainly a good spokesman for him, Ed.
It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of work. And as I said, it's been the contributions of all the trustees and the supporters, and a lot of supporters in this area. And I should say that we have a fundraising campaign going. You may know the name John Egan.
I do.
John has agreed to be a co-chair of that fundraising campaign. He's enlisting a number of people on board. We have Harold Coulters, the renowned chef here in the area, restaurateur in the area, Harold and Jean Coulters. We have a number of other people who are involved in helping with our fundraising campaign. Mike Byron over at the Washington Tavern there. Tess Collins is helping us.
It sounds like you really got a lot of people pulling for you, Ed.
Rick Bedrosian, Hair of the Dog. They're donating time for an hour to help raise some funds for us. And I can't express the support we get and the thanks the great appreciation to the local AOHs, the Albany AOH and the ladies, and Waterville Eats, Schenectady, all of, and we get support also from the Capital District Cultural Association and Capital District Celtic Cultural Association, CDCCA, and Kevin Rowe over there. People are interested in preserving their heritage and finding out about their heritage. So it's been a team effort here in the capital region to keep us going, and we appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you, Ed. And I'm glad you've been able to join us, and perhaps as more exhibits come up, we might be able to get together again.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate your being here, and thank you very much for talking to us. And folks, I look forward to presenting our next presentation probably in another week or two. So thank you for joining us, and have yourself a good evening.
Thank you.
Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.